He is the producer, creator of the YouTube show In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. They have done Bigfoot investigations up and down the east coast of the United States. They do, however, have much more to offer in their videos. It's full of adventure, debunking, and many other exciting things. I'd like to welcome Mike Familant to the show.
Hey,
Hey,
how's
how
it
you doing,
going?
Mike? Good, good. Good to have you finally on the show.
Yeah, I let me just mute my phone real quick. I appreciate that. It's really cool to be sitting here and being able to chat with you about kind of Bigfoot stuff. That's one of my favorite topics. So
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
absolutely. So I guess we could just to get started. I'd just like to tell the listeners, maybe you can tell them, what your show is about, what does it entail, because it's a little different than like your standard Bigfoot show.
Well, that's exactly how I wanted to create it. I kind of wanted to do a mix between Finding Bigfoot and Expedition Unknown. So it still gets the aspect of Bigfooting and expeditions in there, but it also kind of gets people to start thinking about, okay, well, we could do stuff outside. Like there's this whole big world out there, and I think a lot of times people are either nervous or kind of just uneasy getting out of their comfort zone. And I'll tell you, if I never did that for me, if I never got out of my comfort zone when I had my first expedition, I would not be sitting here right now. And it's changed my life for the best of things. So if I could entice and help one family or a group of friends just to get outside and into nature, then that's really all I made the show about. So like on a normal expedition, normal episode, I guess you could say, it's filmed over like 3 or 4 days, and we go to a location that has had Bigfoot sightings or reports of sightings or witnesses from that area, and we kind of go to the epicenter of those sightings and see what we can find. I produce everything myself, so it's like if something doesn't happen, I'm not going to try to make something out of nothing. Like if we don't get any Bigfoot activity, we don't get any activity. It's not, it's no skin off my back. I'm not trying to, heavily edit it or do anything like that, just because that's not, the whole reason why I made the show is because I want people to see what Bigfooting is actually about, not what they've seen on TV and what they may have, these ideas of what they think Bigfooting actually is, but it's so much more to that. And it's so that's why I kind of leave it as is. It's like kind of like amateur-ish filmed, and I think that's what people can really connect to.
Yeah, I did enjoy that side of a lot of your videos, is that there's not a lot of you know faking it, or I mean you're straight up, you keep it real. But you mentioned it, it's amateurish, but I personally think it's well quality video. Did you go to school for film and editing or anything like that, or?
No, all self-taught actually. And so I'm a little bit about me. I'm an EMT firefighter, and do some like graphic design work on the side. So after getting into Bigfooting for a couple years, I was like, man, I'm watching all these shows on TV, and it's like they're cool and they're kind of interesting. But like I said kind of before, is that they don't show what true Bigfooting is. They don't show the drives and meeting up with your friends and going to these little towns and having to drive an hour and 20 minutes for cell phone service. Like they don't, they kind of skip over all that. But that, to me, that's part of the show. That's what makes it interesting to me. So I wanted other people to be able to experience that themselves.
Yeah, I thought what was really cool in some of your videos too, like you had mentioned, like on the Florida video, and how many things you actually had to watch out for out in the wild,
Oh yeah,
like the venomous snakes, the alligators, the black bears, stuff
sure.
like that you guys come across.
Yeah, you have to be, anybody that goes out in the woods. I always try to say, know the animals that are out there. See, for me, it's not I don't get too concerned when it comes to large animals. We have bear here. I mean, there's a ton. The highest density of black bear population in the Northeast is right in the county that I'm in. I've come across them while camping, when hiking, but the things that really bother me, that scare me the most when I'm out there, are ticks, snakes, and people, because those are the small things that people don't think about, but are the things that can really, if you get Lyme's disease, you're out for months.
Right. Yeah, and
So
I think people is definitely a good one.
yeah,
And
you well people could, just because the places that I go, generally nobody else is around. So to see somebody else there, unless I like recognize, oh, okay, that's my buddy John, he's out looking for Bigfoot too, then you gotta wonder. I was down in the Pine Barrens one time. We were filming an episode down there, and the Pine Barrens are beautiful. I mean, there's nothing for miles. And so we're just driving along this one dirt back road, and like we came across a car just kind of sitting there with the headlights on, and I'm like, oh man, like this is the Pine Barrens. Like, no, I don't have any cell phone service. There's no, nobody should be here. I mean, they're allowed to be, but nobody should be here. And I was thinking, like, okay, well, the mafia's kill sites, they have to dump the bodies in the Pine Barrens. I was like, oh boy, if I go missing, at least I'm going to document this. So I started recording.
so what got you started in all this? What was your fascination with this Bigfoot? And then, what kind of led you into the filming and documentation of your adventures?
So I don't have a traditional story that most people do. Like, when I was a kid, I was indoor video game, didn't really get outside. And then I was living down in Florida at the time with my ex-fiance, and our anniversary was coming up. And I was like, oh, finding Bigfoots on TV. Let me go on their website and let's see if we can do this kind of something. My first expedition Bigfooting was the first time I've ever been camping. Like, never camped prior to that. So, we did it. Me and my ex broke up, but I took another buddy of mine, and we got up there, and then nothing happened. This was like North Florida, middle of, I mean, nothing around. And so we get up there, and we're camping with like 50 other people. So I was like, okay, so we're gonna set up our tent and our little site. We're gonna set it up kind of away from them because they're probably weird, right? Not realizing that I was doing the exact same thing that they're doing. But so I kind of, we kind of kept to ourselves a little bit, made our own little campsite, if you will. And yeah, nothing happened the entire time. Nothing happened. The only thing that did happen, that was notable, was we actually thermal imaging. We captured a Florida panther, which was like 20 feet away, which is kind of unnerving, but it's really cool because at that time, this was back in 2011, there was only like 25 of them left in the wild. So it was like super rare. So that was neat. But then it was the last night, and me and my buddy Jimmy, who I went camping with, there's a meteor shower, and I was living in Tampa at the time, so you couldn't really see the stars all that good. So I was like, oh, we're in the middle of, this is beautiful. The stars are great. We're gonna stay up and watch this meteor shower and just chat. It was the last night, so we had a little fire going, and we hear a tree knock, which I didn't think anything about it. That's supposedly one way that Bigfoot can communicate with each other, is by I think they actually clap their hands or pound their chest. I don't think they actually carry a stick around and hit a tree. But we heard one, and I was like, okay, that's cool. Here I am thinking that it's probably the people that put on this event, because they charge a decent amount of money. And since nothing happened, I was like, oh, okay, this is why people keep coming back to these things, is because there's some action going on. And then maybe 5 minutes later, hear another knock from the complete opposite direction. I'm like, wow, these people are pretty good. Like, they're really, it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they're hoping, whatever. And then maybe 10 minutes later, we're still just sitting there, and we got like a rock. I'm trying to think of, see if I have something that's about the same size. You could say about the size of my coffee cup or so, thrown through the woods, and you could hear it like coming down like like through the branches. So it wasn't just like underhand toss type of thing. It was like had some trajectory going on it, and landed like 10 feet away from us. And it was at that immediate moment that I was like, what the hell am I doing here? I need to, I am not safe. there's something else here. And I still thought it was the people. I'm like, wow, these people are crazy. They're
Right.
throwing rocks at us now. Like, holy crap. And I'm like, wow, they got some, some cojones on them. And then my buddy's like, Mike, if you just want to sleep in the car. And before he could even finish the sentence, I had all my tent and my sleeping bag, and I was running, running towards the car. But then he was like, Mike, this is why we're here. Bigfoot, it's possible that could have been a Bigfoot knocking on a tree or whatever. And it's possible that, they are known to throw rocks. So I'm like, okay, he calmed me down a little bit. And over the course of the next 15, 20 minutes, we got like 5 or 6 good fist-sized rocks thrown within 5 to 10 feet of us, of our campfire where we were sitting. And I still, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this probably isn't a Bigfoot. I wasn't into Bigfooting at all. Like I said, this is my first time like ever camping. So I was like, okay, there's whatever. But my buddy, I knew it wasn't a person at the exact moment, because my buddy's like, you know what? I'm going to throw a rock back at it. I said, I don't know if that's a good idea, because we're talking about a person or a Bigfoot. And either way, you're looking, assault charges and or a pissed off Bigfoot. So I don't know. So he throws a rock back, and a boulder about that big, maybe a little smaller than a basketball, came out of the woods and landed like 5 feet from us. And you could hear, it was the same thing with the other ones. You could hear it through the trees. And then it stopped, and everything stopped. I didn't sleep that night, but we did some measurements the next day, because I wanted to see, like, okay, let's be a little scientific about this. Like, let's see if we could, get where the rocks were coming from and see how far away this thing was. So maybe we can go look for tracks or something like that. And the closest possible distance, just because of the terrain and where we were camping, was like 150 yards away. So, I mean, I don't know who can throw a rock that far. So it especially when you got some weight behind them too. So that kind of led me off, and I was like, okay. I came home and I had to process what happened for a while. And then I started looking into Bigfoot reports, like down in Florida where I was living. It's like, wow, this is a pretty big thing. Like, people are actually like, it's not just some, 4 people on TV going out and looking for this crazy made up thing in the woods. People actually like see this.
Right.
So I started investigating, and me and my buddy and a few other friends went out a bunch of times down there. Then I moved home back up to North Jersey here. And, I thought North Jersey and Bigfoot, you don't put the 2 and 2 together, but there's like a lot of reports from up here. So it kind of like got me into, okay, maybe let's continue to do this thing. And then shortly thereafter, I decided, I'm going to make a show, because I want to show people, that it's not about 4 people going in the woods and making calls all night. That's not, that has nothing to do with Bigfooting really. But I wanted to be able to share what my experience was with people, and in hopes, like I said, to get them outside and do something, whether it's Bigfooting or not, something of their own, hiking, fishing. I got really big into survivalist stuff through doing Bigfoot stuff. It's just cool, it's I think everybody would benefit from being able to go outside and kind of explore.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And you mentioned that, in New Jersey, they're pretty much in all over North America, right?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Midwest, not so much, but there's reports from every state except Hawaii. So
Now, is this like a worldwide phenomenon, or is this like a North American thing?
well, I think you have reports all over from besides Antarctica, every continent. So you have, but they're called different things. So like in Siberia, it's like the Yeti, and then you have the Mastiff, and then Australia has a Yowie. And even kind of locally around the United States too, there's kind of some different names.
Yeah.
Ohio's like the Grassman, Skunk Ape is
Hmm.
Florida, Big Red Eye is North Jersey's Bigfoot.
Hmm.
I think they're all related. I don't know how closely related, but I think that they definitely have some sort of connection with each other. I don't think there would be that many undiscovered large primates, you know.
So now, are they slightly different in appearance? Do you think they're the same, one and the same, or are they what's going on?
And that varies by region too. So take out any political boundaries besides like continents and different things, but like in Florida, it's really interesting because you have they're smaller down there. The average sighting size is like 6 feet, where up in Washington State and Oregon and Northern California, they're upwards of 8 feet, which is cool because like you can take that even a step further, and it's called Bergman's rule, and that says that animals that don't need to hibernate are generally smaller than the ones that do need to hibernate. Now I don't think Bigfoot hibernates, but I think in winter there's less food, so obviously you have to eat more. So I think that's why they're probably bigger. But the hair color ranges from black to white to tan to red. There's down in South Jersey in the Pine Barrens, there's a red Bigfoot running around that's been seen multiple times, and then even like their personalities kind of vary from state to state. Like, well, not even state to state, but region to region. And in New Jersey, they're quiet. They don't do a lot of vocalizations because I think that they realize that there's a ton of people around up here. Where you go out into these vast woodlands out, in Northern California, they don't have to worry about people listening to them. The Ohio grassman, the Bigfoot of Ohio, seems to be much more aggressive than Bigfoots out this way in New Jersey. So
That's
it's kind of
interesting.
interesting to see like the dynamics there.
That is interesting. You had mentioned that some of the Bigfoots in Florida, they're smaller in size. You had mentioned in one of your videos that a lot of the times some of the monkeys are being mistaken for.
Yeah, well, and that's very localized to certain portions of Florida, Central Florida. Um, However, those I forget the name of the actual monkey, but they're like a really small monkey thing that they were um, in this attraction area, and the attraction closed down, and they just let the monkeys go. So I think that like when it comes to vocalizations, one has to be aware of that animals kind of, there are weird animals. Like I don't know if you ever heard of peacock. Those things are crazy sounding. Same way with like a fox and stuff. Like they have such a different vocal range that I think, especially if you do investigate areas where there are known animals that were released, you have to take that into consideration.
That makes a
Now,
lot of sense.
now I don't think if I saw a 2 foot tall monkey, I wouldn't say that that's a Bigfoot. But if you didn't see something and you just heard something, well, it's a primate, and it sure sounds kind of weird. So, you have
Right.
to you be aware of the animals where you go if you do go out and start looking for Bigfoot.
What is some of the more compelling evidence that you've been able to capture?
Oh boy, I think the thing that really set me off was we were up in, I don't even know if I have a picture of it. We were up in North Jersey, High Point State Park, and this guy told me he was a school teacher from down New York City area, and he said every winter on the weekends he comes and either bike rides or walks this trail, and he said over the years he's found thousands of Bigfoot tracks, and I was like, I gave the same look you just gave me was what I gave. I was like, okay.
Right.
So um, we met him up there, and I picked the time. It was early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, like first light. There was a fresh snow on the ground too. So like when we pulled into the parking lot, you could tell that nobody was there. We were, by far the first people. And we're walking down to this area where he said he's found all these tracks, and lo and behold, there's a Bigfoot track, and actually a trackway that led about 50 feet from, it kind of like came up some side embankment, and then instead of walking down the trail that we were on, paralleled the trail, walking over bushes and stuff like that, and then it cut back off the trail, and we lost it in the frozen ground. So that was a while ago. That was really cool. in regards to um, like, actually, and we were talking about this the other day. Now, I didn't find this, but this is from Michigan in 2014, and there's a little hair in there. I don't know if you could see it on the camera.
Oh yeah, sure can.
But this came back after being tested. It was sent to me by a friend, but after being tested by a DNA lab, it came back as unknown primate. So that's kind of cool, and that's from Michigan. But anyway, getting back to kind of some of the stuff that we've found, I think the best way that you're going to get evidence of a Bigfoot is through vocalizations. So normally, every time that I go out, I have at least 2 or 3 voice recorders set up. So that way, if something does, we were able to capture whatever it could be. We were in the Catskills up in New York State, and it was winter, and I got cabin fever, and I just needed to go camping. Right? It was like, February. It was February, and it was maybe like 65 degrees out down here, and I was like, oh, this is the weekend. I just need to get out. So I brought a couple of friends. And well, up in the Catskills, there was like 3 feet of snow on the ground. It was like 17 degrees out. So I lesson learned about that.
That's rough.
But we were able to capture one of the best audio recordings of Bigfoot that I've ever heard. And I sent that off to some people to get it analyzed, because I don't do, I always like to try to, let's see what this can't be. I think we kind of, when we were talking on the phone, it's like, I like to try to prove things instead of jumping right to the conclusion like that was a Bigfoot. Let's try to disprove everything else. So I sent that off, the audio off, and the guy came back. He's a linguist for the military. And he came back and he's like, listen, Mike, because of this, and this, like the vocal pitch changes and the reasons that couldn't have been any other animal besides a person or a Bigfoot. So, which is super interesting, because now you take out any animal, right? So it's a person or a Bigfoot. So
Right.
and this is at 11 o'clock at night in 17-degree weather up in the middle of the Catskills.
Yeah.
Like, and it's those little things that kind of keep me. It's like like just that little bit. It's got to be something, and I just want to figure that out.
You'd mentioned that you use voice recorders, and I'd seen in one of your videos you did some casting of some
Mm-hmm.
footprints. What other kind of equipment do you guys use?
We use everything at our disposal. Really, we have drones, we have thermal cameras, we have trail cameras, voice recorders, obviously, still digital cameras, and I always have my video camera. Even if it's not filming, it's always right. I'm always holding it, because the average Bigfoot sighting lasts 3 seconds. So even if you I don't know if you have your phone out but like if you could like take it and open the camera and take a picture that's clear within 3 seconds, I'd be impressed. So you always got to be, you always have something running.
That's a good point.
And that's why people ask me all the time. I think one of the questions I get the most is why is it always blurry? Why is there not a clear picture? And it's like, well, you just take that for example. 3 seconds to take a clear picture of something that's moving is nearly impossible to do.
Right. What are your thoughts on some of the Bigfoot videos and stuff out there? Have you been able to watch any of those and analyze them or anything?
I don't do a lot of analysis if someone sends me something, I'll take a look at it. But there's other people that are much more into analyzing things than I am. And for me, unless I'm the one that kind of filmed it or recorded it or whatever, like that's really cool, but I want to be the one out there doing it. There's a ton of people that kind of will be your armchair quarterbacks, if you will, and they'll go through and analyze all this, evidence and Bigfoot things that come out. But unfortunately, there's no right or wrong way to, it could go either way. If it's a hoax or if it's a misidentification or if it's a fake, it doesn't make a difference, because you still think you captured something on that video.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So and people have analyzed my audio and stuff and the tracks that I found, and a a lot of people say, oh, you hoaxed this, and listen, okay, I don't care what you think, I didn't.
Right.
But it doesn't sway my opinion either way.
You guys are just out there looking
Hey,
for
we're out there
evidence and
we're having fun
yeah.
is what it's all about. You know, getting outside with friends and family and nature, man. You can't get anything better than that.
Yeah, and I think it shows through on your videos. It definitely looks like
I
a fun
appreciate that.
adventure, exciting stuff. Now, I mean, there's got to be more to it. I mean, there's got to be something to this Bigfoot thing, right? Because there have been probably thousands of sightings
Oh yeah,
by, people through the years, probably even far back as 1,000 years or better, right?
sure.
As far as sightings and whatnot. I mean, so there's got to be something to this. Now, do you believe that Bigfoot is a complete physical being, or is it something that's kind of metaphysical or spiritual?
I think it's just one point that you brought up. I think that there's almost no folklores that don't have a realistic start to them. So I think that, with that being said, I think that the Bigfoot um, story or the sightings or whatever did actually come from somebody that saw something that they couldn't tell what it was. But I think, and this is just my opinion, and I don't, for all the listeners out there, I don't want to sway your opinion either way. But I think Bigfoot is like a physical creature, kind of like the chipmunk that scared me half to death before. Um, and there's people that kind of like you touched on the metaphysical stuff where they can shape shift into and out of dimensions. There's people who have the thought process that they're related to UFOs and aliens. I think that as long as you have an opinion about it, I think you're ahead of the game. It's not right or wrong for me to determine who thinks what of
Right.
what. I just, from the evidence that I have found and the research that I have done, it would make sense that it's a actual physical creature.
My thing is just the lack of evidence as far as physical evidence. And like you had mentioned earlier, the sightings usually typically last about 3 seconds. So
Sure.
oftentimes they're like really elusive, right? They're in and out or they're gone. And before you know it, that, you've seen it
Right.
and then it's not there.
Sure. Right. And I understand what you're saying. Um, I think that if um, people kind of don't realize where these sightings are is pretty heavily forested area. There's forest around. I know, like, there was a study done. I couldn't tell you where I read it. I wish I saved the article, but there was a 40-acre fenced-in piece of property or something like that, and the owner put deer on the property, right? And he didn't see those deer. I think he put like 10 deer, and this is only 40 acres, but he didn't see like the deer for months and months and months. So if deer, who I believe aren't the most intelligent things in the woods, can remain hidden and elusive, imagine putting something with a little bit more thought process into it. Like, I know if I wanted to go in my backyard right now and hide, nobody would be able to find me, and I don't have a big backyard. Like, I think a lot of times that when you say they disappear, which people do report, I
Hmm.
think they simply lie down and wait for people to go. There's been countless um, sightings of them like peering from behind trees and stuff like that. So I think they're very aware of their abilities to be able to hide. I think there's, like I said, I think they're smart. Now, I don't think that the other philosophies on Bigfoot are wrong. However, it's just in my experience and in the things that I've found, I couldn't relate them to UFOs or interdimensional creatures. Now, that could change all tomorrow when I go out in the woods for a day hike and one disappears right in front of me.
That's what I
But
like. You're open-minded.
yeah, but as of right now, I think because then when you start thinking about like say shape shifting or interdimensional beings, then to me that just opens like a whole different world up of things, and maybe I'm just not really thought about it enough. But like I said, and if any of your fans or listeners can show me evidence otherwise, I'd be more than happy to take a look at it. Maybe it would change my mind.
Well, there's definitely some physical aspects for sure. I mean, there's footprints that
Sure.
people have found, and like that hair, for example,
Yep.
hairs, things like that. The ability to throw rocks and knock.
So, and one of the kind of cool things that I don't think when we chatted on the phone, I don't think we brought it up, but so I do like a lot of research in New Jersey. Like, um, I've made a list of like a database of all the sightings, times a year, all that good stuff. And what's super interesting to me is that every year, pick whatever part of the state that you want. We'll say up by me in North Jersey, sightings increase by 70% every third year. So if they're so say that they're say they're up here this year, right? There's not going to be that many sightings down in South Jersey. It just is how it works. So, and you can actually look every month or two or every season I go by, and you could see the counterclockwise areas around the state that the Bigfoot sightings increase in.
Is
What's really
that like a
interesting,
migration thing or what?
I think it's nomadic, because I don't think they migrate at all. I think they're nomadic. I think they and the reason why I think that is because if you take like a berry bush and you strip all the fruit off of it, it takes 3 years for the berries to come back. I mean, if someone's hoaxing that, that's pretty. I mean, that's
That's
in
interesting.
yeah. It's and it's things that make you go
You
and
had
that's what
mentioned that in your area. Now, how about in like the Pacific Northwest? Do they have similar things going
I
on up there?
I'm sure they do. I couldn't tell you because I'm not too versed in areas that aren't kind of in my area research areas. But I know there's up in the Pacific Northwest, there's a group called the Olympic Project that do really great work, and they could track, I mean, any animal that walks through that woods, and they've had some really good successes. They do a lot of trail camera stuff, so they know where to put a trail camera and when. So there's groups all over that do that though, and I think that's taking more of a scientific approach instead of just you know hoping.
You had
I think
mentioned UFOs and Bigfoot. Now, a lot of times there's either sightings that are in correlation with that or not too, distant. There'll be a Bigfoot sighting, then a UFO sighting. Do you know anything about that or, have you researched any of that?
um, I let me think of how to phrase this. I have had two, um, we'll call it UFO sightings when I'm out Bigfooting, and I can't tell if they're related or not to any activity. The one sighting that I had was in High Point State Park, and we were just sitting on this place that's very active, and there's a big open field kind of thing. And me and my whole research team, there was like 6 of us, we saw something move through the sky, and it was just like zigzagging. And I couldn't tell you what it is. It didn't have any sounds. It didn't. I'm not a UFO researcher, so I don't know, something anomalous going through the sky. That's kind of how I describe it. And then we did get a really good vocalization that night too, which is not too long after we saw this thing. I can't say or not if they're connected. I know there's a guy in Pennsylvania. His name's Stan Gordon. He does a lot of the Bigfoot phenomenon with UFOs, and he has a couple good books out if people are interested in that.
Yeah,
But
that's fascinating.
yeah, for me personally, though, it's not it it it's not enough evidence for me to be like, oh yeah, they might be connected. I think it was just kind of
It makes you
random.
wonder if there is a connection or if something else is trying to research Bigfoot. I mean, I don't know.
Or us, or
Yeah,
us.
or us.
You know,
It's strange. So now you mentioned you had seen these. Was it a light in the sky? Were they
it,
large? Were they small?
single light, and it wasn't too bright. It would put you in, like, I don't know how many people have seen like the space station, but it's like a solid light, and this thing, instead of just moving in a straight line, which is like what I would have thought like would be the space station does that, it just zigzagged back. It made like M's across the entire sky, and I don't know anything that could do that. It didn't have any noise, no flashing lights, no, and maybe it was a drone. I don't know. Who knows? But it was interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is interesting. Maybe it was a Tic Tac. You familiar
Who?
with that? The
No.
military sightings. It's actually over in your area, the country there.
Oh yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, just
Thanks.
um. So, what is one of your favorite Bigfoot locations that you've explored and why?
Oh, it's like a fishing spot. You never give up your top one. No, it's,
That's funny.
see. I have two answers to that question, and one is, if I were solely to be going to look for Bigfoot, and nothing else, it would probably be Whitehall, New York, right on the border of Lake Champlain and Vermont, because that area has been constantly productive, has a history of sightings, and I've always had really good experience going up there. Now, if you're talking about Bigfooting with camping and with like kind of doing the fun stuff around camp, like fishing or just hanging out, and it would probably be the Pine Barrens, because that's a lot of my friends live down there, and the campsites are like super nice. So, and it's squatchy as anything too. So, it's kind of the best all around location that I've been to anyway. And then you have places like the Smoky Mountains and the Adirondacks and stuff. They're just absolutely beautiful. But I mean, you go up to the Adirondacks and try to find Bigfoot, you're looking, that's 4 million acres. Where do you even start with that?
Yeah, that's intense. Now, do you guys have like an app or some way to track recent sightings when you guys
Um,
go out on your adventures?
Yeah, no, so what I use to kind of figure out where we're gonna go and film for a location, I don't look at the BFRO. If you go bfro.net, it has a huge database of every state and everything like that. I know Pennsylvania. This guy George Workman, I believe, is in charge of that. He has a really in-depth Pennsylvania map. Um, but I don't look for previous sightings per se. I look for what a Bigfoot needs to survive, and that's food, shelter, and water. Because in order to have a sighting, you also need a person. And generally speaking, we go where there's nobody. So that way, the chances of us getting any false evidence are eliminated, really.
Yeah, that's a good point. What would be an ideal place for you to go, or like a dream location that you guys want to do some research?
Oh, if money wasn't an option, I would love to go up to Alaska. I think, and the funny thing about it is there's not a lot of reports from Alaska. But going back to what I was just saying, is there's not a lot of people either. So I think if you were able to get to a location that had a potential for really good Bigfoot activity, I think Alaska or anywhere up in the northern Canadian wilderness.
Right.
I mean, and even down in the United States too, people don't realize, like, Maine has a lot of forested area. Um, Florida does too. It's you know, but yeah, if I had to pick one location, well, I would like to go to Australia, but that's just for vacation, not for really Bigfooting.
Right, right. That's cool. Um, so what are some of the plans for you guys coming up in the future?
That's a very good question, and unfortunately, I don't know. We had all of season, so we've released 4 seasons, and they're all on our YouTube page. and we were all set to start filming season 5, and then the COVID thing happened, and most of the campgrounds and places were completely closed, so you couldn't go there at all. Now they're starting to reopen, but what I've found is people are still very cautious when it comes to protecting themselves and stuff. So if I were to be, say, trying to get a witness or something like that, I would really have to it'd be harder than normally, which is super hard to have someone come on camera to talk about Bigfoot anyway. That, and just like, I have been out, I have been camping, we've done all the social distancing stuff and all that good, all that good stuff. But it's difficult. It's definitely a challenge because, like, in New Jersey, all the bathrooms are still closed. Like, you can't, so how are you going to camp without, I mean, you could, but I don't know. It's, so I think season 5 is going to be on hold. Normally we release the episodes starting the end of October. But I've been doing kind of like solo hikes and stuff to keep our fans kind of intrigued and let them know what we're up to. But as far as episodes, I mean, has to be that's for the future once things settle down a little bit. And it just the other thing too is, like, you can't travel to other states, so it's like if I couldn't, since I'm in New Jersey, if I wanted to leave and go to, let's say, Delaware or Vermont or Florida or wherever, anywhere, I would have to quarantine myself for 14 days after re-entering the state. So that puts a whole big thing on things too.
Wow, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's I've been taking the summer kind of to relax a little bit. Filming and editing the show, as I'm sure you're aware of, is very time consuming, and I've just been spending my days kind of relaxing, fishing, and doing stuff that I normally wouldn't do if I was having to all these deadlines to film the show.
So what? I think I know the answer to this, but what is your goal in all this? Is it just to have an adventure and to have fun, or is it to truly find evidence that Bigfoot does exist?
Well, and that's another very good question. The reason why I got into Bigfooting is because I want to know personally what threw rocks at me when I was in Florida. So I think if I was to be able to say, like, oh, I just saw a Bigfoot 10 feet away from me, I know it's out there, I know I'm good, then that would be okay with me. I would be okay, even if I didn't film it, whatever, it doesn't matter. I just want to know for myself. But what the show has actually turned into is more of, gaining fans and people that are either interested in doing the whole Bigfooting thing, or people that are just interested in an adventure. Because I've gotten emails saying, like, listen, because of this chronic medical condition, I can't get out and hike like I used to anymore, so I live vicariously through your videos. Like, that in itself is the coolest thing. So I what the end game is, I don't know. Would I like to find a Bigfoot? Sure. I think I would. I don't know what I would do first, if I would scream or poop myself. But like I said, I'm not. I could go out, and as long as I'm having an adventure that I wouldn't have sitting on the couch, that's a win for me.
That's fascinating. Let me ask you a question. Do you think do they go solo, or do they travel together?
I think they live in family groups. So I think obviously you need to have a breeding population to be able to support a life. But I think they go around in their family groups until a certain age, where they kind of break off. And the reason why I think that is because I found there's just one area that we go, and we find these mama footprints, I call them. They're like 15 inches. They're a decent sized human track. And then each year we would find little baby tracks. They started out as like 4 inches, like teeny, and each year we would go down there. We would go to that exact same location and find these tracks getting bigger.
That's
And
interesting.
mama's tracks were always the same size, right along next. You know, you could actually see like I've gotten video of like where you could tell the mother picked up the baby and walked for a little bit and then put the baby back down. Like it's it's wild,
Whoa,
really.
that's cool. That's cool. That's interesting. So, not really any plans other than just kind of waiting for this whole thing to.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to go back down to Florida.
Mhm.
I do have you know, family and friends down there, but it's just you know, there's a lot of places that I want to go. But it just, you know, financially and with everything else that's going on, I don't know. Like I said, I did start doing, it's called In the Shadow Solo, and that's me kind of either doing a solo overnight camping trip or some like day hikes where I go over like some just stuff that's on my mind. Like this last one that I posted, I found a really, really in-depth, like crazy tree structure that was not like wind or snow load or anything like that. And then, you know, I kind of threw in a little survival stuff too because I'm into that. And it's like, well, what if I got lost right here? How would I find my way out type of thing? And I think people really enjoy that kind of the two different aspects of it because it's not just about bigfooting. It's, you know, it's about whatever you want to do. I love fishing, so on some of the episodes you'll see me fishing. Simple as that.
Yeah, I know I did. I watching your videos. I enjoyed some of the stuff, even like some of the debunking. You know, with the I think there was a birch tree on the one video that was like bent over, and you were just talking about how people could assume this is Bigfoot, and
Oh,
then you
absolutely.
went in to explain on what your thoughts were behind it, and what you were saying made a lot of sense, that it was possibly wind damage and that it just kind of bent over,
Right.
and just stuff like that. And watching some of your videos, I think the one you guys were cooking some steaks and stuff, and it
Oh
just
yeah.
I was like, man, that looks like a lot of fun.
And that's what it's all about, man. It's all about having fun and just being out there, you know. And I hope that anybody that's listening to this or knows anybody that would want to, you know, get outside and just like I said before, even if you're not looking for Bigfoot, just go out for a walk in your local park or something like that. It's like it's scientifically proven like to be really good for your like mind and stuff just to get outside.
Absolutely. It'll heal you on a soul level, man, being out in nature. Let
Yeah.
me ask you a question. If for people that wanted to get involved in Bigfoot or
hmm
get into researching it, what should they expect, and kind of how should they start to prepare?
Well, that's another very good question. So I try to tell it's difficult. I used to bring groups out years ago, and people who just wanted to get into bigfooting and stuff like that. I have since I don't do that anymore, just for the simple liability reason. If somebody gets hurt, I can't be responsible for that. But if they go on Facebook, this guy, good friend of mine, Glenn McDonald, he set up a page for almost every state. So that would be a good way to at least start getting your feet wet and, you know, seeing some people that are actively posting on there. And you know, I would have to caution everybody about meeting people. I would never meet somebody in the woods. You know, if I'm going to take them out in the woods with me, we're going to go to Dunkin' Donuts and get coffee first because I want to make sure that they're not going to kill me. So I would suggest everybody do the same thing. But you know, it's really up to you what you make of the expedition. For me, I enjoy sitting around camp and stuff, but I also enjoy hiking and summiting mountains and, you know, going and hiking these waterfall hikes that are local in the area. You don't have to do that. You don't. The the best way to find a Bigfoot is literally to sit in camp and not do anything. Like that's how, because the Bigfoot are going to come in. You're not going to sneak up on a Bigfoot. I don't care what anybody says. It's just not going to happen. You know, you're going to find evidence of a Bigfoot by them coming into you. So whether you want to do night hikes and for me, that's kind of gets my adrenaline going a little bit. And I like that. But, you know, people don't have to do hikes, or it could be as intense or less as intense as anybody makes it.
Very cool stuff. Where can we get a hold of you? Where can we find some of the great work that you and your team are doing?
Um, the easiest way to get a hold of us is through our Facebook page, In the Shadow of Big Red Eye. We do have some merchandise and stuff for sale, t-shirts. I don't know if you can see, this is a nice logo t-shirt. We have DVDs out, hats, all that good stuff. And I'm not trying to make any money off of that because I end up losing money, but you know, it just supports our endeavors and our process to buy gas money and you know, those delicious steaks that we cook. And but on our YouTube channel, YouTube is Sussex County Bigfoot, and you could just search In the Shadow of Red Eye, and you could see all of our episodes. So I also have another docu-series out called Squatchables that is kind of like short instructional videos about, you know, if you really just wanted to get into Bigfooting, kind of like a Bigfoot 101 type thing. So people may want to check that out as well.
Very cool. Hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you, Dylan. I appreciate everything, and we'll chat soon.
Sounds good.